used to love these characters, and we also loved that my nana, also from Oldham, didn't think they were funny at all. She didn't recognise it. She was just like them. Yeah. And someone said, who dared to compare Alex Phillips and Claire Pearsall to Les Dawson and Roy Barraclough? There I was thinking how feisty they are this morning. Love them. To love these characters. And then someone earlier called you Emma, wasn't it? And I love this. Someone's just messaged going, oh, her name is Sian, lol. No, it's not Emma. It's not Sian, it's Claire.
I have been called worse. I would accept these.
This is a brilliant one. That's Ian's message. When I worked in Liverpool, the game, you know, the game.
Yes, yeah.
The game. The game was called Celebrity Stiffs.
Brilliant.
That's really good. I'm nicking that, Ian, if you don't mind. I'm now going to change the...
That's going to be the title of your spreadsheet.
On my spreadsheet, yeah. It's a great name.
Do you have a WhatsApp group as well? I think you should.
You want in, don't you?
I want in.
You want in. I'm going to set up a WhatsApp group and it'll just be me and you, probably. But, you know, we will do it.
We will.
It will be there for posterity. Yeah. Right, let's speak now to Alex Wilson, who is Reform UK's London Assembly member. Hi, Alex. Great to have you on the programme. So there you go. Arise, Sir Sadiq, a man so deserving of a knighthood. I'm sure you agree.
Well, I think it won't surprise you to hear that I don't agree, actually. I think what Sadiq Khan has done in his tenure as London Mayor has left a very kind of dark mark on our city. We have a city where it feels far less safe to walk at all hours of the day, a city that's more congested, and a city where it's harder than ever to get on the property ladder. And to reward that record of failure with a knighthood, I think makes a complete mockery of our political system, of our honour system, and I just don't think it's right.
How much, when it comes to things like the city being crowded full of people and rising crime, how much of that is Sadiq Khan's fault personally?
It's his administration. He is the Mayor of London. He is effectively the Police and Crime Commissioner for London. The buck stops with him. He's the man with the motorcade, and he's the man that would be only too happy to take the credit for when things are going well. Therefore, he has to take his share of responsibility when things are not going so well. And all the time that he's been in post, he's put the share of the council tax up again and again. We now pay in London 71% more council tax, his share of the council tax, than we did when he took office just 8 years ago. And what are we getting for that? I say we're getting a city that feels less safe. We have 15,000 knife incidents last year, 1,000 mobile phone thefts a week. Domestic burglary has effectively been decriminalised. We submitted an FOI request a few weeks ago to the Met and got a figure. We asked what percentage of domestic burglaries in outer London result in either a charge or a summons. It's just 2%. What? This isn't a city that's working well.
No,
and to reward the leader of that city with this honour, I think the real honour in politics should be serving the electorate that put you there. There shouldn't be any need for this kind of gong, but certainly when you have a record that is equivalent to Sadiq's, it really isn't right at all.
Now, we don't often get to see him in action. It's not like we have much televised things that are going on in that funny building down the river. So we don't really get to see the debates and the discussions that happen in the same way that we might do in Parliament. How often is he sort of there representing himself as mayor and being held to account? What's he like?
Oh, we have regular mayor's question time sessions, which are streamed online. I know they're not kind of prime time viewing compared to, say, PMQs, but no, they are broadcast online. You can watch those, and all the Assembly members, we all get our opportunity to ask him questions, and I'm doing that to the best of my ability and as much as I can, and within the time frames that we have. As a single member, I only get a very limited amount of time, whereas the other groups, because they're obviously much larger, they have much greater time to question him. But no, we do all that, and we also use social media, things like that, to hold him to account, because there's a lot of things to hold him to account for. But back to this question of the peerage. Knighthood, not peerage, not yet.
I love how you put yet in there. You know it's coming.
Of course, who knows? But no, it's not really a great surprise, is it, though, that Keir Starmer is rewarding failure, because ultimately, at the end of his time in Downing Street, he'll be expecting a reward for a similar record of failure. So it's just setting a precedent. It's the political class looking after itself and forgetting the people who put them there.
I have a feeling, come the end of his time in Downing Street, Sir Keir Starmer's just going to get as far away from politics as possible. I don't think he's having a good time. If gossip is to be believed, I don't think he really likes the job. Whereas Sadiq, he loves it, doesn't he? He loves it. And it's a shame we don't limit the amount of terms a mayor can do, or do we?
No, there's no limit. He can stand as long as the Labour Party want to keep putting him up as candidate. Then he can keep standing. So really, it's up to the electorate for the next election, which will be far more competitive, I think, because of the national context being so much different now than it was at the time of the last mayor election just a few months ago. I think it'll be much more competitive, and all bets are off.
Yeah, well, one hopes, but, the huge demographic change in London, you're kind of thinking, they know what they're doing when they sort of engineer it so they get re-elected forever and ever. And I have a feeling that Sadiq Khan's strategy might fall into that category. Alex, thank you ever so much. And before I let you go, what was your highlight of 2024?
I think it has to be getting elected to the London Assembly, which... It was the first time that Reform UK had someone elected to a devolved body. At the time, we obviously didn't have any MPs. It was before the election. And it helped to give the party a real platform and sort of credibility to show that we can get people elected. And that then translated into the success we had in the general election. And now everything that's happened since, you've seen our polling numbers are off the scale, our membership numbers. That's been the big story of this Christmas period. We're now about 25,000 members ahead of the Conservatives. But all of that started, for me, back in May, when I got elected to the London Assembly. It's been the honour and privilege of my life to do that job. Got 3.5 years to go, keep going at it, and then I'll be using that time absolutely to challenge Sadiq and his record.
Well, congratulations. You must have been there for Reform's very first elected individual, is that right?
We've had a few councillors elected before then, but certainly at either devolved or parliamentary level, the first one.
Well, congratulations, belated congratulations for Reform's big breakthrough this year. I think 2025 is going to be a very exciting year for that particular party. Alex Wilson, thank you ever so much for joining us. And let's do a couple of messages. Someone said, why has Christopher Biggins never been honoured? He's amazing and it's definitely overdue. But it's not the name I would have thought of, but I don't know. Right.
Well, services to Christmas pantomimes.
Yeah.
He's a very nice man.
Love Panto.
Yeah.
Good morning, Alex. Watching all those Liberals going into meltdown on the election of the Donald was my favourite moment of the year. Best week's entertainment of my life. Actually, that was good, wasn't it?
It was. It was funny.
Crying, saying they want to leave America. Half of them are coming here. I'm like, oh, blimmin' it. Can we just do a trade? For every one we have to let in, can one of us escape?
Yes, I think we should.
Ellen DeGeneres can go to wherever she's gone, and I'll go to Florida. Thank you very much.
She's gone to the Cotswolds, where she's getting flooded out.
Yeah. Oh,
Florida.
Regret that decision. Yeah, Florida. I'd like Florida. Now, Mike messaged us about his book.
Yes.
Yeah. So he sent us information. Mike from Lincoln again with more about the book. My book details the unexpected and eventful turns my normal, in inverted commas, life has taken. Besides my RAF commissioned service as a scribbly. What's a scribbly? I feel like it's going to be a navigator or something, maybe. I don't know. He'll no doubt send us another message and let us know. I also did 10 years in the diplomatic service. Here we go. I've had a gun stuck in my face, been seconds from a mid-air collision, been struck by lightning in an aircraft, been locked onto by an SAM. What's that? Surface-to-air missile, maybe?
Surface-to-air, yeah.
Made 2 emergency landings, accidentally driven through a Russian missile battery, had a laser sniper sight trained on me in the street, had to deal with a suspected bomb, been the target of at least 1 honey trap, nearly bled to death, rescued 2 children from drowning in India, been threatened by people working for the Azeri mafia, been on a murder ID parade, worked on a movie with 3 Oscar winners, and I might have inadvertently eaten someone.
Wow.
Right, we all want that book. Mike.
We need this book.
News UK, London Bridge, ping it over. We want that.
We need that.
None of this should have happened to me. None of this should happen to most people, can I just say, given my humble origins and rather mundane administrative roles that have been my lot. I was not in routinely exciting jobs. Were you not? Or even a frontline soldier who might face such unusual events as part of their day job. And this background fact forms the context of my story. So if you weren't serving on the front line at a routine admin job, how?
I was going to say, that was the wrong way to turn out of the door on the tea break, wasn't it?
Building.
I really would, because
I might have inadvertently eaten someone.
I mean, that I can't quite comprehend.
Okay, all I want to say, Mike in Lincoln, you've convinced me. I want the book. Please ping it in the post. And if it's
I think, I mean, I've got 2 children under the age of 10. If I could get them out tomorrow, I would. I really would, because I think we've lost a lot of our culture.
How have we lost our culture? Is one of our biggest selling points to people overseas.
Not to me.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean then?
Well, when I go home, I don't feel like I have a culture at home anymore. But then I live 3 hours down the road, so it's very different for me. I've not lived in London for 30 years.
But what do you mean by culture?
Well, there's no one who speaks my language there. You know, so my culture growing up, you know, as a Londoner, I find it's just changed.
Well, what?
Well, I was only down there 3 days ago. No one spoke a word of English where I lived, where I was, and I just felt like it was just some. I don't know. When I work in other countries, I really find I was only in Switzerland just recently, and you know, Switzerland was a really interesting place, but that's not a place I could live in.
Why?
I just found it a little bit too false. I mean, the week before I was in Poland, I'd much rather live in Poland than Switzerland. But then I've lived in Australia. It was a wonderful place. I've lived in the States. Again, I'd go to America. I wouldn't think twice. Even if Trump is coming in, I actually think that I probably feel there's probably a better vibe in America at the moment than there is in the UK, just by the positivity that's coming out since he looks like he's coming in. But that's just my personal opinion on it.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
During the advert break, Claire and I have been discussing the game that we're not allowed to play on air, the list of 2025, which apparently Sam in Barnsley is measured saying, hi, Alex, it's called Deadpool. And then he says someone on his list, but we're not allowed to name people on the list. We're not allowed to... The list doesn't exist.
It's not a list.
There is no list.
No.
The rules of the game of the list is you don't talk about the list.
Exactly.
But you did.
It doesn't happen.
But you did. My list is there, but I'm not reading it out. No, we'll do that during the next break. This is why we should have some sort of subscription-only service. You know, pay 10 quid a month and you get this sort of red button or something into the studio.
Then you
get to hear all the extra bits, the good stuff.
All the gossip.
That the Ofcom won't let us
proper gossip
on air. Proper stuff. Yeah.
I think that would be good.
That would be good, wouldn't it? But there you go. Right, shall we crack on and speak to Paul Richards, former Labour Special Advisor. Hi, Paul, how are you?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon indeed. Did I say good morning earlier, or did I say anything relating to the time of day?
I don't think so.
Oh, I don't think so. No. Okay, good. That's good to know, because, you know, sort of, you never know. Does that mean it's Happy New Year in Australia yet?
Ooh,
we haven't seen the fireworks. It's got to be soon.
I have no view on that, I'm afraid. I don't know. It must be somewhere.
It's still an hour in Sydney. What's so New Zealand's 2 hours ahead of Australia, is it? I did not know that.
Very far away.
Yeah, New Zealand must be a right old effort to get to. Yeah. Anyway, right, so it's a Happy New Year to New Zealand, but yet to be Happy New Year in Australia. Happy New Year to Sir Sadiq Khan. Arise, Sadiq Khan, knighted. Has that attracted the typical and expected outpouring of disgust? And what's your view on this, Paul? Do you think, you know, you're a former Labour Special Advisor, I'm sure you're a supportive of all that Khan does, but is he the right person to be on the honours list?
Well, he's one person along lots of people who've had knighthoods and other gongs announced in the New Year's honours, including Conservative mayors. And I think he has the largest mandate of any elected politician in the UK, and he's been re-elected several times. So why not? Why pick on him particularly? I mean, either you agree with an honour system that rewards people for public service, or you don't. But why pick on Sadiq Khan?
Well, living in London, I can name you plenty of reasons why I'd quite like to pick on Sadiq Khan when it comes to the service to the community. And I didn't realise until recently that we pay that extra bit on council tax to go to the mayor and his mayoring around. And I don't know if I'm allowed to unpay that. Can I sort of go on strike from that payment. I don't think I can. Let's talk as well about... before we do that, what about Baroness Nuji now adding a dame to her litany of titles? Is she a deserving recipient? I mean, look, depending on where you are on the side of the political spectrum, you're going to dislike it, you know? But even if it's from your own team, sometimes you can look at things and be like, well, perhaps not, or why particularly them? Wouldn't this person have been better? So if you were sort of in a position where someone sat you down and said, Paul, I want you to come up with 3 Labour Party figures who should get a gong, would Sadiq Khan and Emily Thornberry be on that list?
Well, they are political honours and they are long-standing politicians. And like I say, you either support the system which rewards people from all the political parties or you don't. And personally, I think we need some sort of system of recognising public service. I prefer the honours that go to people that have done fantastic charitable work, for example, or police officers or people who've served the country in various ways. And I think those people, sometimes the unsung heroes, are the far more rewarding or deserving people for these rewards. But it's the system we've got, isn't it? And politicians like to stack up these titles and these gongs, and there we go. I don't think they're any less deserving than anyone else on the list today. I'm rather sad that David Beckham didn't get his knighthood, though. I think that would have been a good one to get, but maybe next year.
Yeah, a couple of people have messaged in about David Beckham getting a knight. I'm just so out of the loop with what David Beckham does, really. I'm not sure. Doesn't he have a farm now? Or so? Everyone's got a farm these days. If you've made some money, if you've made some cash money, you don't just go to a Cotswolds, you get a small holding. That's the way forward, apparently. Let's speak about Tony Blair. Apparently he ignored pleas to delay freedom of movement for EU migrants back in the day. It was David Blunkett, apparently, who whispered in his ear as then, was he Home Secretary? I don't know. But said, look, we need this to build the economy. We're now sort of stuck with the legacy of that, where we have unbridled immigration, so much so that even Sir Keir Starmer turned around and has pointed a finger at the Conservative government, saying, look at what you have done and don't make excuses. This was by design. If we turned back the clock and you had Tony Blair's ear, would you be saying to him, would you be giving the same advice as David Blunkett and saying, yes, go ahead and do it? Or would you be more Jack Straw?
I mean, I was a special advisor just after this period where that have been revealed in the papers that are out today. And it's an interesting debate that I kind of remember from the time. I remember council leaders coming in to see the politicians I was working with saying, look, we're really worried about school places and transport and all the rest of it. A lot of the people that did come in that period, particularly the Polish people, went away again. So it's not like they necessarily settled. And the debate that was raging was, should they be entitled to benefits? And interestingly, Blair was very tough. If you look at the papers, he was saying they should not come here and have easy access to British benefits. They should come here from these accession countries and work. And if you remember, back in the day, they did. They came and mended our boilers and they, did repairs in our houses, and they were pretty helpful members of society while they were here, all those people from Eastern Europe. So it is an interesting historical set of papers that have been revealed, and it just shows, I suppose, that behind the scenes these kind of debates do rage and we never quite see them until 20 years later.
Now let's talk about some of the things that the Labour Party could get up to in 2025, or perhaps what they should get up to in 2025. I'm going to start on a little story here, which is apparently police have been recording ageist comments as non-crime hate incidents. It seems to me the appetite in the government is to add to the list of potential hate crimes with things such as Islamophobia. Is that the direction of travel, or have we actually reached a point now in society where the Overton window has somewhat shifted and people have said, well, look, this is a nonsense. We need free speech, sticks and stones and all of that, and perhaps we should revisit this legislation, not with a view of expanding it, but potentially scrapping it?
It's a really difficult debate, this, isn't it? Because on the one hand, people say, it's just hurty words and, sticks and stones and all of that. But on the other hand, every violent extremism case we've had starts off as non-violent extremism. If you're talking about things like bullying online, that can drive people into terrible situations, and so it's not just words, it's actually violence online through words, and it can lead to much worse things. So I think there is a role for saying what you can and what you can't say in public. I noticed, by the way, Nigel Farage was threatening to sue Kemi Badenoch the other day for saying something that he didn't like. So it wasn't dirty words in that case. He was going to go to law because she called him a fraud, So words do matter. And I think the evidence is that what starts online as bullying, can lead to real-world consequences.
In the case of Farage and Badenoch, I think he was threatened to sue her over the accusation that his party he was doing something rather than name calling.
Well, wasn't that just her free speech, though? I mean, if you are a free speech advocate, you would say, well, she's free to say that she feels that this was a fraud and he was lying about it.
Making an allegation against someone, accusing them of something, of having done something, is different, I think, from calling someone an unpleasant name. But on that, who decides what is unpleasant, what is harmful, what isn't, what constitutes hate crime? I mean, ageism might now be added to it. But I'll tell you what, Paul, all my life, or my later life as a Brexiteer, I haven't had many kind words said to me from people on your side of the fence. In fact, I would have them labelled as some of the worst. And some of the things they say really are truly horrible, offensive, nasty.
I'm terribly sorry to hear that.
And I want to...
That's not on, is it?
Well, I want to ask you whether or not, when we talk about hurling around words, whether if we're going to be sort of sensitive about this, whether we should be looking at words like gammon, or accusing people of being a Nazi or Nazi scum, or shouting at someone that they're racist, which is a very serious and hurtful allegation. It is besmearing of somebody's reputation. It's besmearing of somebody's character, and a very serious thing, I would say, to call somebody. So if we're going to talk about hate crimes and words that shouldn't be used, should we be thinking of adding those to the list for people who, quite frankly, just have a political viewpoint that's, fairly mainstream?
I think what you're highlighting there, though, it's a good point, is that somehow our political discussion, our discourse has become totally debased. And I actually blame social media largely for this, because people will say things online and they'll use some of those terms that you've described there, on left and on the right, to say things to people online that they would never in a million years say in public or in a meeting or face-to-face. And it's sort of become now, it's dripping into real life, where people think they can just go up to anyone, say these horrible things. Our members of parliament are subject to this just every single day of the week. And we've become a sort of brittle, fragile kind of society where people run around just calling each other names without any real proper political debate. I mean, what we need in this country is a well-educated, properly informed electorate who can have debates around things like Brexit and immigration and racism without recourse to name-calling. Isn't that not unreasonable?
I totally agree. And interestingly, I don't think I've ever heard Nigel Farage call somebody scum or a fascist or a racist or, any sort of monstrous language like that. I don't think I've ever heard him use such strong accusatory language. And yet most of the cabinet have used exactly that sort of language and exactly that sort of language against the President of America.
Well, as I say, we've seen a debasement of our political discourse to the point where people can do this online as though it doesn't really matter, as though they've got a sort of invisibility cloak just because it's online. And this is why I always advise people never look at the comments, because often it is filled with this kind of hatred and this nasty language. But maybe it's an expression of people's feeling of alienation. They don't want to, they say these things because they don't have ways to say it in a more polite form or structures for that. And that's part of our problem with our politics. I don't want to get too heavy on New Year's Eve, but it's true, isn't it? That, our political system is a bit broken.
It is, yeah. I just think, frankly, people call Keir two-tier Keir for a reason, don't they? And there is this growing sense that if you're on the right wing of politics, you're not allowed to say anything. You're not allowed to, any language can be called a hate crime. But the left get away with saying such demonic things about the right. And it gets to the stage, during the riots, this is a genuine thing. During the riots, it's nothing to the Labour Party, but the Socialist Workers' Party, who are a ragtag bunch of ne'er-do-wells, turned up outside places like Reform HQ with their sort of placards shouting things, and were shouting stamp on the necks, nasty scum, Nazi scum off our streets. And I thought, if somebody is so, riled up to be shouting that, and I don't know, something dreadful happened to Richard Tice, what would the repercussions be? Don't we have to be mindful of that language? Because it frightened me, actually, when tensions were running so high. It frightened me. But because I'm a Brexiteer and I'm evil, I'm not allowed to be concerned about my safety. I'm not allowed to be upset or offended by some of the things people might throw in my direction. I think there's a lot of people out there who feel a bit like that. So I do worry about the expansion of the non-crime hate light incidents language, because we all know that that sort of language will never be covered, that it's a carte blanche, because if it was covered, half the cabinet would be in trouble. Let's talk now about mental health sick days. There's been a surge of those in the public sector. The Labour government have been relatively generous to the public sector so far last year. They've given the carrots. Do you think Sir Keir Starmer is now going to turn around and show them the stick?
Well, the mental health crisis in this country doesn't just affect public service workers, it affects people in the private sector as well, and also, kids at school who aren't even in the workforce. Yeah, and it is a massive crisis. I think it's partly because people are talking about it more than they used to, which is definitely a good thing. People are more articulate now about their own mental health. I think people understand it better, but I think also partly because of the social media I mentioned earlier, post-COVID, because of the pressures of life and other factors, people are suffering from more mental illness, and that's just a fact of life, and we need to have a system in this country that copes with it. And for decades and decades, mental health services have been the poor relation of physical health, and we do need to get to a situation where they're treated equally. And if I was unlucky enough to break a leg or to have a cancer, I would get treated pretty swiftly by the NHS. But mental illness often has to be, you have to wait until it's in its absolute most acutest stage before you even get to see anyone. And if you've got young people suffering from mental health issues, they can't see anyone for years sometimes. So one thing that maybe you'll give credit to the Labour government for doing is putting mental health professionals into schools to help with the young people, putting more mental health staff into the National Health Service to help people.
Do you think they might look into following in Australia's footsteps and cracking down on things like social media access to under 16s?
I think there's a debate to be had. I don't think there's a fully formulated policy on that, but it does have a terrible impact, and because it's new, there's a generation now who've only known this, who are, it's for them it's a fact of life. It's the first generation really that are the test case. So we'll have to see what that impact it's had on their socialisation, on the effect on their brains, on their mental health well-being and all the rest of it. But I think there is a conversation to be had around the impact of social media, because we see it everywhere, don't we? It's just insidious. It's people on the trains playing music out loud because they think no one else can hear it. It's this idea that they're all walking around in a bubble, people walking down the street staring at a screen, and unable to have a conversation or a debate or meet a stranger, or, and it's affecting people in the workplace. And as an economy, we do need people to be healthy, happy and well, and working, so that the economy as a whole can grow.
Why is it that public sector workers are 3 times more likely to take mental health sick days than those in the private sector? I've got my own theory on this, which is if you're in the private sector and you say, I'm depressed and I don't want to go to work, you might find yourself without a job to go to and stay off work sick from. Whereas in the public sector, I just have a feeling there's a lot more HRing, let's say, in terms of protecting the workforce. And perhaps, given they're sitting at home under their blankets doing their jobs anyway, perhaps we just need to get a bit stricter.
Well, maybe that's the answer, but I suspect what it is particularly people in the health service, just unbelievable amounts of strain over the last few years, and through COVID and out the other side, in services that are absolutely stretched to breaking point. And similarly, if you talk to teachers, they will tell you that they are overworked and under stress as well. And I think it's just I think it's more to do with the fact that the public services are so stretched that people working within them are stressed more, and I think that's probably more likely to be the explanation. But it does relate to people in the private sector too, and so today's figures are obviously about the public services, but anyone working in 3 jobs and on a minimum wage and on a call-off contract with 0 hours will tell you that that's pretty stressful as well.
I think a lot of things in life are stressful these days. 2024 is definitely a stressful year. Paul Richards, thank you ever so much, former Labour Special Advisor. Shall we take a little break now? Because after the break, it's going to be time for your calls. That's right, so I want to give you as much time as possible. Now, the number to dial if you want to join us, Sian, Emma, Claire and I, is 0344 499 1000. Calls cost your normal rate and all the rest of it. You can also send me a WhatsApp on that number, or indeed leave me a voice note. 87222 is the number to text. Put talk before your message. Claire, Emma, Sian and I are back after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
That's right, we're going to calls now. That was a conversation with myself in my own head because we were playing the game that is not to be talked about during the advert break. And I wasn't paying attention. We came back and I thought, what are we doing now? So I just answered myself. The voice in my head said, what are we doing? And I was like, that's right, we're going to calls, which is an interesting way to begin the penultimate section of the programme. But let's rescue me, shall we, with David in South Wales. Bore da, David.
Bore da.
Is that Happy New Year?
No, that's how are you today?
Oh, well, if I could speak any more Welsh apart from Isbiti for hospital, that one I can remember. Isbiti. The service station is just Gwaizanathau or something. How'd you say that one?
I don't know. I don't speak Welsh.
Well, you know, you got a Welsh accent. You're called David. I mean, you've got to up the game here a bit. How long
yeah.
There you go. New Year's resolution. Learn some of your language.
Oh, I did know bits and pieces of it. At my age, I'll never get a vocabulary big enough to
do you know,
converse.
I think at anyone's age, unless you're somehow born in a Welsh-speaking family, that's a language and a half to learn. My word. I do love it, though. It's a delight, you know. There's something quite exhilarating and exotic when you go over the Severn Bridge and all of a sudden it's Croeso y Cymru and you're like, yeah, get in there. It's like proper old language. It's like dragons and Arthurian legends and, you know, and sometimes I just don't know how to pronounce that. Thankfully, because I worked at BBC Wales and ITV Wales, when it comes to place names, I'm pretty good because you just hear them so often, I can repeat them. When it comes to reading something, you just I give up. I don't know. Where are the vowels? And also, you know,
we've got more vowels than you.
What do you mean? You never use them? You got them because you keep them in some sort of Swiss bank somewhere instead of spending them in your language. But don't you worry, the weird letters, the W's and the Y's, you're all over them, aren't you?
Yeah,
Welsh Scrabble would be amazing. Can you imagine? You'd be like getting 30 pointers every single time with Welsh Scrabble. Brilliant. You know, when you look at I hate Scrabble, by the way, but when you sort of look at your rack with all your tiles on and you think, oh God, I can't do anything with this. Welsh though.
Could be a Welsh mining town that you've
exactly.
Just
Welsh mining town's probably in there. So I've got 5 L's. Welsh. Anyway, David, we weren't supposed to be talking about this nonsense, but that's what happened. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I'm perplexed by your mayor in London. Every time I listen to the way his name comes up on the wireless, he's getting hammered. He's not popular. He's not nice. He's useless. He's spoiling things. He couldn't run a race. Couldn't organise
the proverbial in a brewery.
Yeah, but he still wins elections. Why?
Well, that's a question to us, Claire. I think what it is unfortunately all the sensible, patriotic people of London don't live there anymore. They've escaped for their lives out to the boroughs. Claire, do you live in London?
No.
Do I live in London? Yes, but I'm planning on getting out. And this is the thing. London is now... So, here's a little factoire for you. 60% of the population in London weren't even born in the UK. 60%. Foreign born. That includes everyone, you know, the Italians who work in the city and the Greek hairdresser or whatever. But it's quite an astonishing figure. So London isn't really a British city. I've said this before, it isn't Britain. You've got a few Disneyland bits. You go around Westminster, which is lovely, and, you know, you always have the hair stand up in the back of your neck as you walk past Parliament, the odd red telephone box, the beautiful buildings. But quite frankly, living in London, I get homesick for England. I miss... you know, the sounds of people mowing their lawns on a Sunday and just fish and chip shops, proper ones, not, you know.
But also, I think there is the case that people have not, from other parties, haven't put up a candidate strong enough to take on Sadiq Khan.
That's true. Every single time now, the Conservatives say, we'll just roll up like this person because we're not going to win. And I'm like, but you could, actually.
Exactly. They go into it going, we're trying.
Right, why don't you want
how about it? I know, and I find that's really disappointing. And I think the nearest were Reform when they had Howard Cox as a candidate who was very good and very strong, but can't take on the machinery of someone like the Labour Party and the Labour Mayor.
Who would be your fantasy London Mayor?
My fantasy London Mayor? Well, I see it's very difficult. I would quite like to see someone like Penny Mordaunt. This is where I'll get a huge amount of abuse thrown at me. I think she'd be very good.
Do you know what? The first person who popped in my head as I asked that question to you was Mike Graham, because I thought that he looks like he'd look good in like a mayoral outfit, wouldn't he? With like the big chain and some sort of,
He'd go round, wouldn't he? Sort of, proclaiming. Yeah. Every morning it'll be the Mike Graham proclamation of London.
I'd love that. Mike Graham for London Mayor. That is my fantasy pick. Now, David, you don't have much skin in the game, but it'd be your fantasy pick for London Mayor.
I have no idea. I put Boris Johnson back on it.
There you go. I did think he made a good London Mayor because he's sort of ambassadorial. He was fun. He talks about boosterism, doesn't he? And it did make London seem a fun place. It was very good. He was I think he was brilliant in that role in many respects.
I mean, the thing is that the police went through a bad patch with him, didn't they? That they keep appointing the wrong people as constables, and once they're in, they can't get rid of them. So, that is the biggest problem. Is the laws affecting the working people are too good and keeping people who shouldn't be working.
Well, I know the accountability, I think, is sort of suggesting people like the civil service and stuff. They manage to stuff up their jobs and do their work appallingly, and nothing happens to them. It's so true. David, thank you ever so much, my darling. It's always great speaking to you. Let's cross over not other side of the country. It's the same side of the country, and it's a different country, in fact. Do you know, I'm going to learn geography in 2025. Is
that your test?
We are going to Matt, who's in Cheshire. Hi, Matt.
Hi, good afternoon, Alex.
Hello, good afternoon.
All the best to everyone and all listeners and everybody at Talk TV for New Year and everything.
Oh, that's kind. You could have said it with a bit more enthusiasm.
I'm just looking out of the window. It's grey and miserable, so I'll start with the positivity tomorrow.
Yeah, go on. Try and put some yay in your voice. Do a quick yay for me, Matt.
Hurrah!
Yay! Okay, let's go. Positivity.
My fantasy London Mayor would be Rupert Lowe, I think.
Oh, yeah. I think everyone from all political classes have a bit of a Rupert Lowe crush because he just works so hard. And also, he gives his entire MP salary to charities in his constituency. Like that, he's just changing the game, Rupert Lowe.
He's been an MP for like 10 minutes and he already seems like he's been in there for like a decade or something like that. He's statesmanlike, but also he seems like pretty ruthless, and he, more than anything, he's doing what the majority of people want, or at least saying what the majority of people want.
Well, he's holding the government to account regularly. Every single day you look on Twitter, there's a Rupert Lowe FOI. He must have like a team of minions just like bashing these things out all the time. But isn't that what MPs are supposed to do? Hold the government to account. Like I said, he didn't change the game. He just remembered how to play it because no one else does. Everyone else seems devoid of their... Most people go into politics, I think. I don't know what you think about this, Claire, but increasingly... Back in the day, when you look at some of the old politicians, even from the 90s, there were ideologues. There were people who had convictions and joined up theories. A bit older in life, who were sort of really passionate, whether from the left or the right. I can think of really good folk on both sides of the political equation. Today, I struggle to think of anybody on either side who I think is in it for the right reasons, who has a vision and conviction. Instead, they all just seem to want to be an MP because they think it makes them... important. They gives them some swagger and some kudos.
And they don't believe in anything. That's what I find really hard. And they just trot out the party line because they're told to, without actually saying, hold up a second, I don't believe that and my constituents don't either. There's none of that free thinking.
They don't want to think. They want to just follow.
Be told,
and it's like, hold on, you do realise that politics is the opposite of that. You're supposed to be thinking, and you're supposed to be leading, and you're supposed to be governing, and you're
what do
supposed to
you
be deciding.
believe in?
Not just going, oh, well, Twitter didn't like me saying that. Oh, the Guardian headlines don't like me. I better change my mind then.
Yeah, the party whips have told me to say this, so I will. And that's what we see a lot of at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's really, really disappointing.
Yeah. Bums on benches, wasted places. That's what I say. Westminster Palace full of disgraces.
Hey! Nice one.
I know, thank you. Right, Matt, thank you ever so much. That was Matt in Cheshire. We're going to take another short break now, but when I come back, it's time to turn our attention to the other side of the Atlantic and ask, what might 2025 have in store with the New World Order over in Washington, D.C.? That's coming up after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back to... I hadn't used my voice. That's all I've been doing is using my voice, and then I don't know, something very strange happened, and that's how I decided maybe I should do that after every advert break. Just come back with a
keeps everybody on their toes.
Yeah, kept me on my toes. That's for sure. You almost jumped out of your seat. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I do not know what happened then. It was a sort of mechanical malfunction somewhere in the throat area. Right, let's hopefully try and talk, if I can manage to do that, to Rick Gates, former Deputy Campaign Manager for Donald Trump in 2016. Rick, thank you for coming on the show today. And, well, 2024, great year for you, I assume, for Donald Trump's, the return, Trump 2.0. What is 2025 going to look like? I have a feeling that the first 100 days are going to be crackerjack, that he's going to go great guns in trying to get things done.
Yeah, Alex, great to be with you. It has been a chaotic 2024. Hopefully 2025 will bring more success with Donald Trump. But look, he's largely given us the roadmap to what he's going to do in 2025. We saw it through the campaign. We're seeing it early in the transition. And it's largely going to focus on, kind of two areas, domestic policy and then resolving global conflicts. And there's no question issue number one on the domestic side is curbing immigration, protecting the border in the south, and even in north with Canada. And I think you've seen a lot of activity resonating around that specific area. And then obviously on the global side, there's a lot of conflicts that he wants to resolve, Ukraine, Russia being a prominent one that he's going to do very early on. But there's going to be a lot of tests, for Donald Trump early on with Congress. And we saw a little bit about that about a week ago when our government was in the process of shutting down. It was averted, but it was a test of how President Trump is going to have to work with Congress. But I expect that you'll see him use that executive branch power immensely. He will issue a lot of executive orders. Expect January 20th, the first day of his presidency, to be just littered with a lot of executive orders on a myriad of issues.
Yeah, so do you think he's going to face many roadblocks? Because I think in America you call it the trifecta or whatever, that he's basically got power exactly where he needs it. Both sides of, what do you call it, both sides of the House, both levels? I don't know what the American term is for that. And then also the Supreme Court. So do you think there's going to be many sort of roadblocks in his way for managing to achieve Trumpism? Because I suppose one could argue back in 2016, it was far harder for him to get through the stuff he really wanted to do.
Yeah, if you look historically in our country, it's interesting when a president has controlled the White House and that same party controls Congress, whether it's Republican or Democrat, that party typically gets less done than when there is a bifurcated, Congress and White House. My hope is that Donald Trump is able to rectify that this time, given that he's a disruptor, given that he's a different type of president, as we saw in the first term and certainly will be in the second term. My hope is that he can corral Congress to get those key priority items that he wants done. He has a majority in the Senate, which is really strong. The House, obviously a little weaker. We'd like to have a greater majority there, but I think that's where the test is really going to be for him. But look, in politics, the devil is in the detail. And as he rolls out these policy issues, we're going to have to see where members have concerns, if they have concerns, and if they do, whether they're going to continue to support Trump or whether they're going to oppose him in some of these key votes.
And what about Elon Musk? Because that really is a sort of big headline appointment in Doge. Is that going to end up being more ceremonial? Because one sort of has to question how you manage to run all of these big companies. We know he's a workaholic. He sleeps, only sleeps about 6 hours every day and tends to sleep on the floor of wherever he's working. Is he going to have time to do everything that he wants to do? Will the relationship, will the bromance survive?
I think the bromance survives up into the point of where, again, they get into some key issues, maybe like China, where Elon has a different take than President Trump. But at the end of the day, President Trump is president, and he will overrule Elon Musk every time. But I think if you look at the dynamics of what is happening, you have Elon Musk, you have Robert Kennedy Jr., and you have Tulsi Gabbard and Donald Trump all trying to change how government works, how it operates. We've never had that kind of in our lifetime, and even Democrats would say, I never imagined those four individuals being on the same platform together trying to change our country. So I think if there's a team that can do it, this is it. I think Elon's a big piece of that. But at the end of the day, he will always defer, to President Trump on issues.
I mean, they're all quite sort of blood.
I look like shit, but I need to show you guys my air filter in my house. There's fog everywhere, and I've been feeling like respiratory issues for like a couple days now, like basically since the fog started. And I decided after seeing all the fog videos on TikTok, I would come and change my filter, which I do every month because I keep them on deck. I have like, ooh, Lord, I have like 8 of these and they're expensive, but I keep them on deck because I like clean air. This is a new one. Let me show you what my new one looks like. This is a new one, okay? It's a MERV 11 filter. Now, keep in mind, I just changed this filter like a month ago. Let me show you the one that I'm about to pull out. What? What in the actual fuck? Look at this filter, y'all. I've never pulled out a filter this dark in my life. This is not normal. It's black. Look at the new one. Oh my God, y'all. Oh my God. This is fucking crazy. I'm sorry. This isn't normal, yo. It's not normal. This fog is not normal. This is not normal. Never in my life have I ever seen a filter like this. Never. I change these all the time. I have a ton of them. This is banana.
Very excited. I want to get a proper MAGA hat, and if I can get it signed by the president, even better. Rick, before I let you go, random question for you. Very random, but there is a method to my madness. Can you name me a Cliff Richard song?
No, I cannot. Sorry.
Americans don't know who Cliff Richard is.
No.
And my American friend said this to me the other day, and I was like, what? Do you know who Cliff Richard is?
I do know who he is, but I don't know his music very well.
See,
so
I thought Cliff Richard was like internationally famous, but America kind of missed the whole Cliff thing. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But anyway, there you go. It sort of proves my point. There's no Merry Cliffmas over in the States.
There's not.
Rick, thank you ever so much. And you never know, I might be seeing you in Washington, D.C. We might rub shoulders at some fancy events. Fingers crossed. Right, going to take a short... Oh, no, actually, before we go to our break, I just want to point something out. This whole inauguration thing, right? So I'm going over to the States. So I can't wait. I'm going over for inauguration, and they just have like parties all over the hill. Everybody has parties. Then there's the whole big event of inauguration itself. Could you imagine that in Britain? Like we get a new prime minister after a general election, and there's like a rock band on Parliament Square, and you can buy tickets to it, and everyone's having all these
Everyone's
like
having good
glamorous
parties.
cocktail events. And
No, because we elect our Prime Minister and we say, off you go, crack on with the job.
Yeah.
There's no sort of pomp and circumstance surrounding that. They just turn up to work on the Monday and everyone just goes, oh, OK, how bad are you going to be?
Do you think it would help if we actually sort of smiled a bit more and had a bit more fun over here?
It doesn't work with our politics, does it?
Can you
imagine the parties that Keir Starmer would start and have?
A party for Starmer getting it now. Isn't it great?
I mean, it would run between the hours of, 3 and 4:30 in the afternoon. Everybody home for tea.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Well, maybe
it's
not
the
everybody home for tea. Right, off we go to an advert breaker. But when I come back, Steve Denyer is going to be wrapping up the show with us, giving us his entertainment roundup of the year. Don't go anywhere.
We are, broadly speaking, agreed that we need to get on track towards a net zero, climate safe and nature positive future, but we know this will not be easy. And we're going to need to change behaviours of both individuals, but also the way that our industries and corporations and also our governments work and practice. We're going to need to do this through a mixture of carrots and hopefully perhaps not so many sticks, and some kind of mix. And there's a very active and live debate as to how we go about this. But we're likely to see an increasing move towards a more stick-like interventions into the future as things worsen if we're not able to act. We are, broadly speaking, agreed that we need to get on track.
Calling in all reinforcements. Need your help on this one. My friend who lives in East Texas woke up today and this is what was in her pool. Now, she's lived in this property for over 11 years never has had anything like this happen before. No, she did not change any chemical regimen in her pool. The only thing that she says that was kind of weird was there was some really odd fog yesterday. But I've tried to look it up too. I can't find anything that would lead to anything like this happening or any reaction with water. So if anybody has any idea, any water experts out there, I know I have a few, or at least one following my page. We need your help. All right, guys. Thanks so much in advance for your help.
Kindly asked me to come on and pick some of the big kind of talking points.
Yeah.
And then so I'm kind of trawling through all the big programmes, and lots of big moments this year, unexpected big moments. We're going to start at the new year with, right at the start of this year, with Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, which I watched all of it in one go and was utterly compelled, was furious, was emotional. I've got a little clip. I wonder, this is 30 seconds of why this programme changed everything this year. Take a look.
Let's do it.
You're responsible for the loss.
I haven't got that money, and I don't know where it's gone.
These deficits were most likely caused by you. That is the Post Office case.
All our hopes, all our savings down the pan.
That was a lie, actually. We are fighting a war against an enemy owned by the British government, while we're just skint little people.
Isn't it powerful?
It was. What I loved about this, because, you know, working in journalism, it's a story that, you know, was circulating to the papers for years, essentially. Yes. This came out and it personified something that in print just felt a bit complex. And,
because I didn't get it. I saw Horizon Computer Systems and Postmasters, but I didn't realise the human cost, you know, of this. And it reignited calls for justice as soon as it was broadcast. It led to the government taking action. They probably would have got round to it, but all eyes on when the action was going to happen, how much these poor people were going to get. I think what I never understood was the social costs. You know, they lost their job, they lost everything, but also these postmasters had a crucial role in their local environment, and people didn't trust them anymore. Yeah. And once that trust is lost, it's devastating.
In the community. And, you know, when you see the accusations, and it's basically a family-run business that you've lost there.
Yes.
And the sums of money that they were being asked to pay for an ordinary person, because it's not like you're running a post office, you're making the big bucks, just astronomical. Yeah. And I can't, I mean, I lose sleep over the stupidest little things. Yeah. I cannot imagine that burning injustice of being accused of something so big that you know was not you, that frustration that no one's listening to you, the despair.
And every morning these people using this computer system that's been thrust upon them, and you switch it on and your debt has doubled or tripled, and you know, you can see your life crumbling in front of you, and nobody listened. Nobody really listened until this TV show appeared. It was one of the biggest kind of miscarriages, I think, in British justice. Yeah. And it was sorted thanks to this show. And if you haven't seen it, it's on the ITV player. As I say, 5 episodes. You'll watch it in one go. You'll be furious. I cried my eyes out, actually, watching it.
I made me a bit tearful just watching that 30 seconds there. It does it sort of makes you think, my God.
Really emotional. Next up is Baby Reindeer.
That was huge. That was massive.
And I'm mentioning it because we had such a big moment on Talk. The whole world watched the real Martha, who came in and spoke to Piers Morgan, and this is what happened. Take a look at this.
Guilty.
You were charged with the harassment of Gerald Dunn and Eleanor Dunn between the dates of the 6th of June 2016 and the 22nd of March 2017. Are you guilty or not guilty?
Guilty. My little reindeer.
Now, again, there is obviously a resemblance between...
Do you think so? That's hardly flattery.
Well, I don't mean to flatter you or not flatter you. I just think there is a resemblance, you know, having met you, and you both speak Scottish people. Yeah. But the fundamental point of this is, did you take part in that? So did you go to jail? Did you have a trial?
Of course not. Of course not.
Have you ever been to prison?
No.
Yes, this programme had it all.
It was fascinating. It's like
wasn't
you
it?
armchair psychiatry, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just watching, looking for the clues, the ticks, the, you know.
Yeah, I mean, so the TV show itself, really interesting this, because the TV show, it was put on Netflix with a bit of a whimper. No one was watching it for the first couple of weeks. And then everybody got fascinated to find out, is it a true story and who is this person? And remember, we hadn't seen her until she came in here into News UK and she spoke to Piers Morgan. I remember watching that show as it was aired, and you can see on YouTube the amount of people watching it. It was going up 10,000 people per 10 seconds around the world. The whole world watched it.
I think we missed a trick, though. I think that interview would have been absolutely gangbusters if it had been done by Jeremy Kyle. Can you imagine? Get the lie detector test out.
But the amazing thing is, we're now in the middle of this court case. We've all seen it. I mean, 70 million people have seen this on, and it's it's deeply unsettling. It's constantly surprising. It's harrowing. There are a lot of very kind of emotionally strange people, to be polite, in this series. And one moment you're on his side, and then you're on her side.
I didn't feel like I was on his side much at all. Part of me is still slightly sympathetic to her.
Well,
I mean,
like, you know, she said
she's a troubled woman,
she said to Piers, the thing is, Netflix said this was a true story. I've never been in court. I didn't go to court. I've never been I never, you know, served jail time. And I could be identified within 10 seconds. So when this came out, if you wrote Baby Reindeer, Scottish lawyer, her name popped up. So it's going to be interesting to see what Netflix do. If you watch it on Netflix, you still get This Is a True Story. Pops up 2.5 minutes into the first episode. This is a true story. So it's fascinating to see what's going to happen. She's suing them for millions, as you would expect. But what a great TV
You
show.
think she's probably got a solid case, actually?
I would think so. I would think so. But Netflix, I mean, you would expect them to be over this legally before they air such a statement.
This is a great narrative, and it doesn't matter. She can sue or just pay. I mean, they must have a lot of money in the bank, old Netflix.
There's very few of these shows where we all watch it, we all have an opinion, we love it, we get behind it, and this is the show of the year, I think.
That's true. Right. Good one.
Shall we talk about some people that we lost this year, some surprises, and some sadness? I mean, Dame Maggie Smith, I think, you know, it's one of those rare occasions where you go on social media and everybody had a memory, an RIP message.
A meme.
This lady's career is 7 decades, and she won all of the awards, 2 Oscars. What I loved about her, reading about her life, is she very much loved the stage work, which she wasn't that famous for, you know, the Shakespearean works. The stuff that she didn't like was the stuff that made her a household name. So, like, you know, your Harry Potters, Downton Abbey. She hated Downton Abbey because, because, I mean, she's so legendary, but she said that was the moment that she started getting bothered. So when she started to do it, she loved going to the theatre, but when she went to the theatre and people wanted autographs and selfies, it kind of got in the way. She was an actor's actor, and she did it all. And I think she loved the, you know, the instant kind of fever of being on at the theatre. You know, the fact that you can see the audience.
The sort of immediacy of it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, could you imagine if all the listeners right now are sort of I'd be terrified. I really hate public speaking. I can sit and do this because
that amazes me, but you don't like it in person.
Box, you know, nobody's out there really. But if I were to stand on a stage and even do a presentation to 10 school kids, I'd be trembling.
Yeah, absolutely. But very sad that she's passed. Obviously, she was old. I think the shock of the year is poor Liam Payne.
Yeah, I know.
That was an absolute shocker and a tragedy. We've got a Virgin Radio special on our YouTube page of people we've lost this year. And I was saying, you know, in a world of PR events, this was so un-PR'd. You know, the poor guy died on his own. Just yesterday, 5 people have been charged in connection with this murder. So this will carry on in the new year. But he was in a desperately bad way. People filmed stuff in the hours leading up to this awful situation, and you got somebody who spent more than half of his life in the public eye, and he finished his life on his own.
It's so hard.
Really awful.
It's so hard for when people have fame when they're young. Because he was, 14 when he first auditioned and came back at 16, but that's young.
Yeah.
To suddenly be catapulted into every teenage girl's dream and ludicrously famous. It's a level of celebrity internationally that
you couldn't even fathom, could you?
And it ruins a person. It really does harrow them.
And when you have all of that so young, remember, he was the person, he was told, you're going to be the out-and-out star of One Direction, and that didn't happen. For whatever reason, Harry Styles managed to kind of step up to that mantle, and he was just left a bit like, oh, is that what it is now? Is that all I've got? You know, it must be really difficult. And our thoughts and prayers go to his friends, his family. Seeing those boys together at that funeral was heartbreaking, wasn't it? It wasn't supposed to happen that way.
No, absolutely not. And I like your number 4. I want to talk about that. We haven't got much time left, so rattle through.
All right, Diddy's charged with sex trafficking, racketeering, transportation, to engage in prostitution. This is rumbling on. He's in the same detention centre as Luigi, isn't he? Luigi, the guy, the assassin.
The assassin.
The you know, who shot the, you know, in New York, the New York assassin of recent times, who, the healthcare guy who got, you know, Brian...
got it, sorry,
So it's all rumbling on. Obviously, we've got news stories about Jay-Z at the moment.
I love all this.
All these videos and stuff. So this could potentially take a lot of people down in the new year.
Really
this is only beginning. This is just beginning. So all eyes on this story when it does go to court in the new year.
I can't wait.
I've also got the Oasis stuff. Dynamic pricing was the new term that we learned this year.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because of these poor people who spent 8 hours trying to get Oasis tickets. They never thought they'd go and see this show, and they were quoted £150. At the actual time when they had to pay for the tickets, they went up to £400.
Oh,
Dynamic pricing, it can't happen. And I think in the new year, things will be put into place to make sure it doesn't happen. But there we are. What a year.
What a year, Steve. Thank you ever so much. And do catch up with us all next year. Keep us updated.
Of course I will.
About Diddygate especially, because I am all over it. Apparently, it's almost going to be New Year in Australia. There's the live pictures. We're waiting for their pyrotechnics display, which we're going to sort of play you out with as the show moves along. And do stay tuned to talk. We're going to be, hopefully, I would assume, giving you all the latest fireworks from around the world now, because it's just beginning. 2025 is just around the corner. Thank you for spending the last few hours of 2024 this morning with me.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. A shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or ball slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal
liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No. There's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Afternoon. How are you? It's Christo here on Talk. Thanks so much for your company. And I think on your screen in a few moments, we're going to be seeing some of the Sydney fireworks taking place because, of course, it is New Year in Sydney already. Happy New Year's Eve to you. There we go. Look at the Harbour Bridge there. Harbour Bridge, of course, built by British workers with steel from Newcastle or Middlesbrough or somewhere in the north. Look at that. I've been there for that, you know. I've had a hotel room overlooking that harbour. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to spend New Year. They're doing the most amazing firework display. And you know what you get in the firework display in Sydney? You just get fireworks. I guarantee you tonight there'll be a homage to the NHS by Sadiq Khan. There'll be probably a homage to the suffragettes, a homage to something other charitable, noble cause in his minds, and something else to get re-elected. He'll probably have a firework display or a drone display, because of course fireworks are awfully unenvironmentally friendly, of his own face, actually. In fact, they'll probably end up being called the Sadiq Works instead, won't they? So that's what we'll get, but look at Sydney. If you can't see what's on screen at the moment, you are literally just looking at proper massive fireworks going off, explosions in the air, a sea of different colours. They're being fired off the whole of the Harbour Bridge, across that big arch of the top of the Harbour Bridge. They're being fired off from Sydney Harbour, and they are proper fireworks. They look good, don't they? It's an amazing place to have New Year. I have very, very sad predictions for the fireworks that we'll have here in London. Am I wrong? Am I being a bit of a misery guts? Do you know what? I just want fireworks. I just want fireworks. And one of my favourite things about the London fireworks, I'll tell you what's coming up on the show in a minute, but can I tell you one of my favourite things about the fireworks here in London? That Sadiq Khan, who of course is going to be Sir Sadiq very soon, and more on that in a minute, do you remember earlier this year when he was categorically against voter ID? Do you remember? Though you needed to show ID to go to the fireworks tonight. So literally, he was in favour of you having to show identification to go to a firework display that was against you having to show identification to vote. He's such a repellent little man, isn't he? He really is the most awful little runt. There are few politicians that get me. Boris Johnson is one, Sadiq Khan is the other. They are two sides of the same dishonest coin. It's the kind of coin, if you had a Sadiq or Boris coin, you'd go into the shop to pay for that coin, and they would bite into it and it would be made of marshmallow. But of course, we've heard in the New Year's honours that Sadiq Khan will be getting a knighthood. Now, I know that there has been a lot of talk about this over the course of the last few hours here on Talk. So I'm going to flip this conversation on its head because, as you know, as this is my final show on Talk for a while, I'm going to try and be relentlessly positive, okay? I am. Yes, I might be a bit drunk. Now, I'm going to try and be relentlessly positive, and I'm going to say to you, this is going to be like therapy for us, all right? We are here together for the next few hours. Let's try and get through it. Just imagine it's like Christmas lunch with your family. We just have to try and get through it. Let's list the things he's done to deserve the knighthood. Okay? We're going to try and come up with reasons why he deserves his knighthood. Now, come on, we can do this. There must be something. It's got to be something. He won 3 elections. Is that a reason for a knighthood, though? Isn't a knighthood an amazing achievement? Is it enough of an achievement to win 3 elections when people hate the governing party that you're not in so much? I mean, I swear to God, I think during the last few years, Labour could have put up a stuffed animal and it would have won the last 3 London mayoral elections. In many cases, I think that stuffed animal might have done a better job as well. There's got to be a reason. Come on. Let's think of something. There was something I was thinking about on my way in. And I've forgotten. Oh, I tell you something, right? I was on a bus on the way here. I do take buses because I am a man of the people. I was on a bus, and that bus had a screen that told me the next stop on that bus. They were there before Sadiq Khan. I remember thinking, oh, that's something good. That's so good. If I didn't know my way around this city, what a great way of because it was there before he started, those, were they? Okay. That's all I got, ladies and gentlemen. Come on. Reasons why. Coming up, by the way, we'll go through those top stories. There are a few others as well, including the VAT on private schools benefiting the middle classes. That story will not go away. We'll talk more about the New Year's honours list and whether it is all just a farcical reward for failure. An interesting story today. You know, you get the papers, the government papers that are released every few years. Well, Tony Blair ignored pleas to delay freedom of movement for EU migrants. He ignored them from his own cabinet. And I thought that was an interesting story for us to talk about. Plus, I'm very, very interested, and we can keep this going through the whole show. What is the most important news story for you throughout 2024? Finn, who's on the Knobs and Buttons today, well, you're on the Knobs and Buttons day. Finn is, I don't know what Finn's doing. Maybe you can come up with a list of them for me that I could throw out to people when you get a moment. You're working on it, are you? Yeah, well, by 4 o'clock would be nice. So lots for us to talk about over the course of the next few hours. We'll talk to Ella Whelan as well, who's written a really good article about this whole debacle over Sadiq Khan getting his knighthood. So lots for us to talk about. But let's go through some of the big stories of the day. Harrison Al-Manvati is a political commentator. And am I right in thinking one of, if not the youngest elected councillor we've ever had in history, Harrison?
I think you might be right in saying that. Well, when I was first elected, I was 18. So I probably was, not so much now. I'm 21 now.
Oh.
So there's probably a few more younger people. But I'm probably still in that younger bracket. I think the average age profile for a council is 66. Before that, it was 82, and then I got elected, and it went down to 66.
You are ancient. How are you going to cope? That's terrible. You poor, poor thing. 21 years of age. Excuse me while I vomit. Now, nice to see you, though.
You too.
Nonetheless. So, okay, Harrison, we're going to do this, all right? We're going to do it. Come up with a reason why Sadiq Khan deserves his knighthood. He is deserving of becoming a sir. Come on.
Ooh, that's a
must
tough
be
one.
something.
That's the hardest question I've ever been asked, ever.
In your entire history of political commentary, you've been asked to come up with reasons why our fiscal performance may not be working so well. You've been asked to solve immigration. You've been asked to solve the Ukraine war. However, the reason why Sadiq Khan deserves a knighthood is the most challenging question you've ever been asked.
You know, one thing, and he can't claim credit for this because he can't, because I actually think it was the Tory government, but the rollout of the Elizabeth line happened when he was mayor. Now, that's not really his achievement. It's just the fact that right place, right time, really, wouldn't it, for him?
No, you don't get that. Sorry, I'm adjudicating. You do not get that because it was billions of pounds over budget, And it was about 3 years late, and he was mayor when he suddenly went, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to call someone who runs the Elizabeth line, find out whether it's ready. And a couple of months before it was due to be delivered, we found out that they were lacking in track, trains and tunnels. So, respectfully, no.
Do you know, actually, 3 years too late is the record for this country. So with everything being so over budget and overspent, I think, 3 years is probably not that bad of a record.
Yeah, no, you don't get that. Sorry, you don't get the Elizabeth line. It's a good suggestion. It's a good try.
You know what? I'm not dying on the hill for Sadiq Khan. It's just not what I'm. So I'm going to just completely pass on that, I think.
Okay, well, I'm going to put it on the list. I'm going to start listing some of the suggestions. Elizabeth line is your suggestion. I don't think it's going to go very well. However, I mean, is it a bit of a mockery of the honour system, do you think, that someone who has seemingly achieved nothing other than winning the elections themselves, which I suppose that is an achievement, but do you think that this is a little bit of a farce?
The achievement of winning an election is becoming mayor. And it's nothing more. There isn't small print by saying, oh, if you win London Mayor, you also might have a small chance of getting, on the honours list. This is not how it works. The reward is you become mayor. Look, he has presided over record knife crime, housing shortfalls, which he's failed year on year, yet somehow manages to squeeze his way out every time there's an election. He's punished poor people with ULEZ, and he has also the financial mismanagement of TfL, which we can't forget, which has had to receive bailouts when it is running, that is. So I think this is a completely rewarding failure. I don't know. I'd quite like to hear Keir Starmer go, well done to my mate Sadiq for, and then try and see the smoke come out of his ears and the cogs kind of clink around in his head. Because I'd quite like to hear why he's deserved this, really.
I've absolutely no clue. What about Emily Thornberry? Has she done anything?
Well, I was a bit confused by her getting on this honours list because she got really shunted, didn't she, when it came to the election. She was dropped like a sack of spuds by Keir Starmer. She was told, you're not good enough, you're not joining. So he's obviously... Do you know what this is? It's guilt. Or it's a case of, look, I won't give it to you, but, I'll get you on the New Year's honours list. And she's gone, all right, I'll take that. So I don't know. I just think it's a little bit... That being said, the Conservatives did it, didn't they? They gave it to who they want. I just personally think it should be something where it does reward, very, very good endeavour, really, shouldn't it?
OK. What about Gareth Southgate?
Gareth Southgate's an interesting one because he came second. He didn't win. He wasn't a winner. And this should be a list of winners. That being said, he was able to unite the country, which is quite a nice thing.
And he's got. I don't have a problem. A lot of people are saying that that's failure. He's got us further than we have got in a long, long time, and I do think that deserves a reward. Does it deserve a knighthood? Is the question, which I'm a bit torn on. It certainly deserves something. I think some honour within. In the list. I don't know if he'd had one already, but the actual knighthood, becoming a Sir, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think if it was any other list, you'd probably think maybe not. Like you said, some recognition, but not that. But when you've got Sadiq Khan on the list, you think, oh, you might as well let him through then because he's better than Khan. So I think, do you know what? I actually do think just the overall quality is lower when you have people like Khan in there, so it makes people like Gareth Southgate come across a lot better than in usual years. That's quite harsh. That sounds a bit mean, but I think that's the case really. When you put people like Emily Thornberry and Sadiq Khan in there, you devalue it.
I mean, it does seem like a very, very bizarre list. Can I just mention one more glaring omission, which delights me like there's no tomorrow, and that is David Beckham. I'm so delighted he's not been made a Sir because he's so desperate to be knighted. And I do think there's something quite vulgar about desperately campaigning for a knighthood.
I think when he was, remember when he queued up for the Queen and he thought, I'm not going to take the VIP lane, and he queued up for what was it, 12 hours? I bet he was thinking, this has got me locked in for sure. I bet he's gutted not to have got it.
He will be. Of course, he'll be absolutely gutted. OK. All right, when we return, we'll talk about a couple of the other big stories of the day, including... well, I would like to know what you think of this, actually, Harrison, because it's a really important story, and I don't think it's made a huge amount this morning, and that is why Tony Blair seemingly ignored concerns about immigration. So we might talk about that and a couple of the other stories around as well, including mental health sick days in the public sector. So there is a lot for us to discuss live here on Talk.
There is to be a public debate about what we want from public service and then decide how to deliver it. Now, I would say in the end, the BBC is worth supporting, and the licence here is increasingly difficult to support because it's regressive. But you look at all the alternatives, it's difficult. For example, if you took advertising, it put you out of business and others out of business, and the rest of the industry is saying, please don't let the BBC take advertising, it'll destroy us. There are lots of problems with every way you pay for it.
But why don't they concentrate on core services, which essentially is how the BBC was founded?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
So we've been discussing our top story of the day, which is Sadiq Khan getting a knighthood. We're trying to come up with reasons why he deserves it, and well, I won't lie, we're not doing very well at the moment. Still joined by Harrison Alman-Vati, political commentator and young councillor. Where would you like to go next, Harrison? Because I know that we've got this public sector sick day story. Mental health sick days are surging in the public sector much more than the private sector. Now, of course, you'll get some people saying, well, look, the public sector is very, very stressful to work in. That's the reason that this is happening. You'll get other people saying, well, actually, no, hang on. When you work at the public sector, you get full pay when you're on a sick day, probably more pay than you're likely to get in the private sector, and you're able to take longer. So therefore, that's why this is happening. What say you?
I mean, what's stressful is having your own business and if not showing up for the day, meaning that you can't pay your mortgage or your rent, that's stressful. I mean, that's the peak of stressful, knowing that if you actually physically cannot get into work, you cannot pay for things. That's probably the top level. Now, Rachel Reeves talks a good game about increasing productivity, but she ought to look in her own back garden before she starts telling private businesses, because it's no secret that it's the state sector that has constantly lagged behind when it has come to productivity, especially when you look at major advancements in tech. We still see no shift in the increase in productivity, or major shifts anyway. So perhaps that's a poor adaptation of the public sector. Some NHS services still are adamant on using fax because they think it's just that's what they do. The public sector is extremely bloated, and as we've seen through a few case studies now, that the number of employees don't exactly always mean output is higher. For example, Elon Musk was absolutely ruthless with Twitter. He sacked, what was it, over half the workforce, I think it was. And that has never been busier. I mean, it's probably died off a little bit now, but it did peak when Musk was in control. I personally think what the Trump administration is looking to do with their Department of Cost Savings, or DOGE, whatever it's called, Government Efficiency, sorry, that will be quite an interesting case study that I think the UK should pay attention to. What happens when you do, treat the public sector as if it's a private company that is trying to drive as much productivity as possible. So yeah, that's my point on it, really.
I think that there's a bigger story here, actually, and I think that it's a story that I really think we need to be talking about more, and that is the good thing, right? It's a good thing we talk about mental health more. It's a good thing that we accept that mental health is something that is serious. I have suffered from, in my past, not anymore really, I'm a much happier person in a really good place, and I have been for many years, but certainly in my 20s and early 30s, I was in a terrible place with my mental health. I was very depressed, I had severe addictions, I had an eating disorder, I had all these sorts of things going on. And I don't say that to be woe is me, I say it because it was happening. And I was open about it, and I used to talk about it, but I never missed a day of work because of it. And that was because, to your point, I couldn't, I was self-employed, I had a mortgage, I had to go to work, I had to. But more importantly, actually, it made me realise that as much as I loathed having to drag my carcass into work, drag myself out of whatever was going on in order just to go to work, that was therapy in itself. And that part of the resilience required when you have a mental health problem is actually getting yourself showered, getting yourself dressed, and getting yourself out the house. And I worry that we focus a lot on the negative of mental health, quite rightly, and we talk about it all, but we don't talk a lot about the coping strategies that are required, the resilience that can fend off that mental health problem, and the benefit of actually going to work, even though it might feel like it is the worst thing in the world to do when you're thinking about it.
You know what? I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think that's particularly prevalent around young people, right? I think when you're working, right, whether you really like your job or not is somewhat irrelevant, because it gives you a sense of purpose, right? You have a role within a business, and in exchange for the time you give in, you get some money out, right? That gives you a standing and a place, and that is critical for actually strong mental well-being. It gives you something. The worry is that mental health, I think, is at risk, and if not already, being used as a term that is now too broad. And that's seen in the public sector. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't want it to be a restrictive thing, right? But if it's at risk of being abused, the impact of that is, put productivity to the side for a second, the impact of that is people who genuinely do have mental health problems is shadowed then, because you then have people that will claim mental health on things where maybe you just had a bad day. Maybe it's a bad week. Who knows? Maybe a bad.
Maybe you do genuinely hate your job. Maybe you are feeling down, and those are valid feelings, but they are a different category to someone who has a real chemical problem. That's someone who is in an absolutely dire cycle of addiction, perhaps, for instance. There are, you're right, different categories of mental health, and again, I think it's important when we have these conversations not to just invalidate anyone who might have a mental health problem or sound like we're trying to generalise things too much. But I just think that we're scared to discuss the solutions for fear of looking like you're being heartless, when in actual fact that's precisely what is needed from people who are having a mental health problem. The other aspect of this, and I'm interested based on your age, so you're 21, about this, and that is, I wonder whether as a society, again with perhaps good intentions, we are creating a situation of mental health problems. Many people who've listened to me for a long time know that I bang on a lot about resilience insofar as we try and legislate now any adversity out of young people's lives. You won't hear opinions you don't like. You won't grow up having to worry about crossing the road, worry about any kind of risk whatsoever. You will be cushioned and you will be coddled from anything adverse that you might encounter, especially in universities, the place where you should encounter it most, because we know it might upset you, when in actual fact it's that resilience that will make you stronger. And so then when they do encounter something that is actually bad, because life is bad sometimes, they just collapse.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. The problem is when you create an environment where you think nothing can go wrong, when even the slightest of thing goes wrong, then it seems like it's the end of the world. The problem is you do need to have bad days to appreciate the good days. That is just a fact of life. I'd be quite interested if they took a poll, or a major poll of uni students and assess their mental health. And then you did that for those who are broadly the same age and those in work. And I bet you that the mental health will be stronger and better than those of the same age who are in work than those who are at university. There is a massive sense at university where you kind of float around, don't do much. Your workload is non-existent. There is no need for these courses to be 3 or 4 years for the average course. It's a case of it can be done in 18 months if they did it 5 days a week. Obviously, the reasons behind that is you then have to pay the rent, you then have to spend more money, take on the loans. There's a big thing behind it, sure. But I think it is an interesting one, because I think you're right in the sense that young people, we've almost like, don't offend them, don't say anything that might upset them, don't give anything that they might not like. And unfortunately,
we're not training young people for adversity. And when I look at our ancestors, our older relatives, and I'm not suggesting that this is a good thing, but the reason I think for a lot of them that their mental health was considered to be better was because they went through wars. They went through literally no heating, toilets outside, like having to walk 5 miles to school. Now, we don't want that for young people, but they had a benchmark. They were able to say, right, you know what? Nothing that I'm going to encounter today is going to be worse than those times. So therefore, I'm all right.
The thing is, Christo, that young people in this country have never had it so good. It's just a fact, right? Look at me, right? I'm a young councillor, and people always say to me, oh, but we need more young people in politics, don't you think so? I say, well, if they want to do it, that's fine. I said, but the average 18-year-old doesn't want to be a councillor. They don't really want to be a member of parliament. They don't want to do it, right?
But they also don't want the abuse. Could you imagine? I imagine you get, especially having been a Conservative councillor, so much abuse and so much stick for it, and many of your peers, I'm not saying all, but many would probably crumble, right?
I mean, but that's the point. I think the point I'm trying to make is a case of, look, It's never been a better time to be a young person in anything, because any company or any organisation is looking to go, look at us, we've got a young person, right? Now, I didn't want that to be my thing. I didn't want to be selected because I'm young. I said, pick me because I've got these 3 objectives that I'd quite like to achieve at a local level, and I think I do a pretty good job at it. And by, the members looked at it and they select me, and that was it. But it's a case of young people can do whatever they want. It's never been a better time to be a young person in this country. There is so much opportunity. So I would say I feel like constantly, whether it's from maybe left-wing media or from teachers, it's often the case of that you're kind of patronised a little bit by saying you're not, don't let them tell you, you can't do this and you can't do that. It's just not the case. It's never been better. So there's a lot of reasons why you should be happy, and I'd be quite interested to understand that poll to see what the mental health would be different between workers and those at university.
All right, thanks so much, Harrison. Really good to get your take on those stories. If you were waiting for that Tony Blair immigration story, we are going to cover that a little later as well. But coming up, we'll have more on Sadiq Khan getting his knighthood. Come on, someone is going to come up with a reason why he deserves it. And I'm not sure it's going to be Ella Whelan, who is the journalist and author, but we'll give it a go when we return live here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
I'm just going through your tweets that you're sending, and I'm trying to find someone who's got one positive thing to say as to why Sadiq Khan deserves his knighthood. Evie, nothing. Knight Rider, nothing. Brian, nothing. Cosmic Optimus, he's destroyed London. Kelly says, I have a business selling zombie knives and my profits have gone up, so thank you. I mean, I'm sorry I'm not reading them all out, but literally every single one of you. Same story on the texts. Well, Ella Whelan is a journalist and author and has written a piece on this today, actually, as well, and joins us live on the line. Hi there, Ella. Oh, are you there?
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
We've got you. We have got you. Thanks so much for talking to us here on Talk. So just remind us of the general flair of your piece that you wrote regarding knighthoods.
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, the News Honours list has lots of people in it who are just ordinary citizens who do good things for charity and whatever. And it's if you're into that kind of thing, it's a nice thing for people like that to be recognised. But there's always for every government some level of kind of nod and a wink kind of appointments. The Tories last time round, got their big donor in. It's kind of the same as peerages. It's a way to give credit to people who you need to give credit to and sort of solve political problems. But of all the list of people this year, the two that jumped out at me was Labour MP Emily Thornberry and London Mayor Sadiq Khan. And the reason I just think that these are so egregious is because, they are two politicians, people working in politics who encompass the sneerier elements of Labour, the more kind of, the sort of virulently middle class. They're both anti-Brexit. They encompass that kind of anti-populist sentiment. Thornberry infamously tweeting out that picture of the St George's flag in that kind of nasty way. Sadiq Khan also having said several, too many things to quote in relation to sort of putting down Brexit and people who voted for Brexit, Leave voters as well. And I think it just signals where Labour is at, which is that it's completely dropped off all of its pretense of being a party of the labouring classes. And it's also just kind of, the cynic in me just says, well, Thornberry was left aside for the cabinet, Starmer's cabinet. This was her payoff. Sadiq Khan is, let's to go to what you said at the beginning of this segment. I mean, he's incredibly popular. Loads of Londoners love him. I'm a Londoner who doesn't love him because I hate what he's doing in relation to road restrictions.
That love him, though? Have you ever actually? Because I've never met one. I know he seems to win, and I'm not suggesting any kind of impropriety, but I've never actually met someone face to face who has admitted to loving him.
I've met plenty of them. I mean, it's
we don't go to the same places, clearly. He's obviously popular among a certain, I don't know, the stereotype is the metropolitan class, people who can afford to, drive electric vehicles, who don't mind the LTNs, who want everything pedestrianised, who don't have to use their car for work, blah, 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 But there's another side to London who really dislike him and wish that he wasn't in power. And the thing about the knighthood means he'll forever have political influence outside of the democratic system. And I think that's, for someone who, there have been scandals around some of his political moves recently. There's suggestion that some of the numbers were, fiddled,
less than watertight in relation to some of the ULEZ commissioning and the ULEZ consultations. And I just don't think that kind of behaviour should be rewarded. I'm not a fan of the honours and knighthoods and damehoods as it is anyway, because I'm a Republican, but this just seems like wildly inappropriate. I think these two.
And I think that the title of your piece in the Telegraph says it all. Gongs for Khan and Thornberry are an insult to white van man. And I think you're absolutely right that actually the traditional voter base of Labour actually many years ago probably would have been white van man. However, nowadays many of their policies where they close roads, where they inflict fines on people who have vehicles that aren't very, very new, the vehicles, incidentally, that they encouraged them to buy when they were in government years ago, those diesel vehicles, the congestion around London, the kind of sneering attitude towards those people who are perhaps working class in the trades. There's a sentence in there that you say that essentially it really displays now the importance of being anti those people to Keir Starmer's government. Those people who perhaps are sneering at white van man are the people who Keir Starmer is now prioritising.
Yeah, well, it's funny because people, after I've written this article, there's lots of people on Twitter saying, well, what about the Tories? And indeed, the piece is in the Telegraph. It's not exactly the white van man paper, is it? It's not a paper of the sort of populist working classes. And the Conservatives, in their own way, were obviously, again, not a voice of the people. But the thing about Labour that always, I think, has to be pointed out is that it has, for a very long time, tried to hold on to the pretense of speaking in favour of the masses, of the working man and woman. You know, even though slowly their language has changed, obviously dropping that clause under Blair, you know, you can tell that they now often use the term working people, they don't use the term working class, but still pretending like they're for the little people. And that just isn't the case anymore. You know, substantially you can see that in their policies, whether it's the sort of row of the two-child benefit cap and all the rest of it, but also just in the fact that there are so many Labour politicians who are loose-lipped around their class prejudice. I mean, there was the Thornbury tweet. There's so many examples. One of my favourites was Shami Chakrabarti, Labour peer, you know, who said at a party conference just a few years ago, begging voters, please don't leave me in the room with Essex Man, you know, because Essex Man is so awful. And you know, there is a prejudice within a lot of the Labour Party that thinks that ordinary men and women, whatever you want to take ordinary to mean, but people who aren't sort of Oxbridge educated living in Islington are thick, are dangerous, are to be patronised. And you know, the reason why Khan and Thornbury's appointments matter, even if the New Year's Honours list doesn't really matter, is that it signals that shift. This is a party that has no interest in the interests of the mass of people who turned away from them in the 2019 election and moved to the Tories, you know, Brexit voters, people who are interested in some kind of different politics. All of that's gone out the window. So it's actually pretty depressing. Well, politics can feel really depressing at the moment.
It really is. And also, the thing I've never understood about Sadiq Khan, I mean, I've been a massive critic of him for years, because to me, if there was and I say this to you as obviously a woman who, you live in London yourself, don't you, Ella?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a woman living in London, but not just a woman, as a young person who might be living in London as well, if the crime level was the level that it's at when I became mayor, that would be priority number one over everything. Women's safety and young people not stabbing each other would be the two priorities. And ultra-low emission zones and cycle lanes and the things that are almost pushing at an open door, the easy wins that you can then go on stage and say, oh my God, look at all this thing I've done. That I wouldn't give two hoots about that, because it would be making London safe for you and for younger people. And he's failed so miserably on that. And because he's so good at saying, look over here at these cycle lanes and look over here at this low traffic neighbourhood and look over here at these low emission zones that I've brought in, he kind of gets a free pass on it.
I think it's the thing about Khan is that there's, yes, I think his priorities have been all over the place. I mean, actually in the piece I mentioned the fact that he's, you know, been involved in, you know, new memorial for the Atlantic slave trade, fair enough, and has said how that it's essential to, or constantly talk about the historic wrongs of the British Empire, fair enough. If that's your view, you can't then accept, to my mind, you can't then accept a knighthood and a handshake from King Charles and, you know, and have those two positions at the same time. So he's all about, to me, Khan's all about him promoting himself. And, you know, he did all these road restrictions and then wrote a book called Breathe, which is about how he's the great saviour of London air quality. On the crime issue, as a born and bred Londoner, grown up in Finsbury Park and in Hackney, living in Hackney for a long time, I think the women's safety issue is a bit of a dodgy example, because women are, the vast majority of violence against women and girls happens in the home, in a domestic setting. You're fine walking around London streets. London's great. London is still really great. And I hate the doing down of London and the sort of London has fallen argument. I just don't buy it. I still love my city. I still think it's a brilliant place to live and to go out as a woman or anyone else. But if in relation to your point about knife crime, you know, there's a serious issue going on with, in particular, young men in lots of cities, but in London being a big one. And the sort of discussion about knife crime tends to be on a very superficial level of getting, you know, well-meaning celebrities in to do something around zombie knives, rather than looking at the real issues behind it, what is actually causing young guys to go out and try to kill each other. And I think we need to be having these more substantial arguments, which the card isn't interested in doing.
It's a hard problem to solve. And going back to the point about the easy wins, it's far easier to talk about the racism of the Atlantic slave trade. And you're right, it's an important subject, but it's far easier to talk about that and unveil a statue to that and the racism of that, rather than talk about young black men, mainly, and other races, but mainly young black men, that are actually killing each other. That's a much more difficult problem to solve, so therefore it's far easier to say, well, look over here instead at this statue of the slave trade that I'm concentrating on, rather than solve this really important problem over here. And that, to me, it will be the legacy of Sadiq Khan. And actually, that to me is why, as a politician, he's brilliant, because he manages to divert a lot of people's attention to the virtue signals rather than the problems being solved.
Indeed. I mean, I said it already, but the interesting thing about Sadiq Khan is that if you look at his track record, because he's someone from as he's very fond of boasting about, yes, a very kind of ordinary background. He's not one of these people, politicos who've been shipped in like a lot of the Labour Party, born and bred into the political system, and son of a bus driver and blah blah blah. But everything that he's done in a position in power as London mayor has been about a kind of particular London identity, which is very sort of environmentally friendly, green, and by that I mean sort of restrictive, trying to stop Londoners from getting around, the kind of causes he's backed up in. I mean, he goes on and on and on about misogyny, making misogyny a hate crime, doing this and that for women. It's a sort of it's a way of looking like you're doing something rather than actually doing anything substantial. And then discussions about crime or London streets also amount to very little in reality changing. Previous mayors, I'm not trying to say we're any better, Boris Johnson and Livingston did some, pretty terrible things for London. But there's something about Sadiq Khan that is, in the way in which he's promoting himself as sort of a saviour. I just can't believe he had the gall to write that book. It's just so, it's so gauche, it's so unself-aware. I think that's what really irks people about him, is that, he is wildly unpopular among a large section of working class Londoners. He has made life impossible for taxi drivers, anyone, any labourer, anybody who's a plumber, my husband's a tree surgeon, a builder, anyone who needs to carry things around in a car with them to work. Lorry drivers who are delivering stuff to Sainsbury's. It's miserable. Yeah. It is miserable driving in London. And
I know for a fact, we've got to end it there, but Hackney is one of the worst places for it. Yes. I'm Lambeth, so I feel your pain, because they're sort of hand in hand with the absolute...
You were where it all started.
Yeah, exactly, with the misery of just not being able to drive anywhere when you've got a van full of stuff. It's ridiculous. Your husband should be on a bike with those trees. Indeed, Ella. Yeah. How dare he not bother with that? Listen, thanks so much for that. That's Ella Whelan, journalist and author. Her brilliant pieces in The Telegraph, and I think that sums it up really well, actually, what she said. It's a betrayal to white van man. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that premise that white van man, that sort of working class person who is I hate working class as a term, but you get what I'm getting, the class of person working in a trade, needing to get there from A to B, perhaps not university educated, who just wants to earn a crust. It's that person with aspiration that is being perhaps finding something brown and smelly coming on their head from very, very far above with this. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. When we return, we'll get some of your calls on air on this, because you are calling in your droves and you ain't happy. Next here on Talk.
We've got all the heating on, all the lights on. She's trying to shut all the curtains. Merry Christmas. Welcome back to the channel, guys. And today we're in Worcester outside the Founds Hotel. What country? What country are you from? Oh, I've got the tree up. All right, mate.
Yeah.
You want a game?
Hello.
Want a game?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Come on.
Hello, you right?
I'm having a shot.
Hello.
Whoa, get your hands
Hello.
off me. Get your hands off me.
Hello.
What are you doing? Get your hands off me.
Can you get out, please?
I was having a shot.
Can you go out, please?
I was having a shot.
Yeah.
Oh, Rayan, security,
Hello.
get your hands off me.
Hello.
Hello, hands off. Observe and report, yeah? Don't touch me. God, nice to see the
Mind your language, please.
Mind my language?
Yes.
Don't touch me. Ooh, he's unhinged and he's actually locked my friend in there.
Hello.
Hello.
Are you alright?
Are you open? Did you put them? Oh, we're on the radio. So yeah, guys, he's actually just grabbed me then. I remain calm at all times because I know what they're like. They exaggerate things. They'll tell the police something to get them here quicker, and then they're always going to side with them, aren't they? So I don't take any risks while I'm here. Oh, there's the security. Is he touching you? Did he touch you?
He just pushed a bit because
Yeah.
he clocked that I was still in there.
He didn't even know that you was in there. Should have got some table tennis.
The guy, the security guard.
Yeah.
The security guard came right.
Got all these bikes, look. All these bikes. They got the tinsel up.
The greatest security.
He's locked the door.
I was with him, that's funny.
Obviously, we're all smoking cigarettes. This is the restaurant. Hello, guys. You stay in the restaurant?
No.
No. There's
Living there.
Yeah, they're doing a conversion. They're adding 20 rooms to the hotel.
Sorry?
They're adding 20 rooms to the hotel. They've been given confirmation by the council.
Huh.
20 rooms upstairs.
20?
Yeah. Added on.
I don't know.
No?
I'm living in the floor.
Oh, okay, well.
Jar.
What country you come from? What country did you come from?
Afghanistan, Pakistan.
Pakistan?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, how long have you been here? Because it's been closed 3 years?
I'm 8 here in UK.
Yeah?
But there, I think 2 months.
2 months?
Yes.
Okay. But how long in the UK?
8 here.
8 years?
Yes.
In hotels?
First in the home, after go hospital.
Yeah?
Queen Elizabeth Hospital.
So when you went to hospital, you lost your home, and then they put you in a hotel?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, have too much allergy.
Yeah.
The request time home office can
Yeah.
send me in the home.
Yeah.
But now finish good.
Is it nice inside? Is it good?
That's hotel nice.
Yeah.
Good hotel.
There's a lot.
yeah.
There's a lot of history.
You live in there? You live in there? No. Security?
What?
You security?
No.
Okay.
There everything good. I'm looking at Birmingham 2 hotel, but down nice hotel.
This is nice?
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite old, isn't it? It's like
What is that? What is it?
You in the council?
Yeah.
A good in the council.
Yeah.
I'm too much allergy.
Too much allergy?
Oh, yes.
Lots of allergies.
What are you allergic to? Nuts?
Eating chicken.
Chicken?
Something chips. منو؟
Allergic to chicken and chips?
لا ما في مشكلة. ما في مشكلة. خلي
You're
يصورونا
arguing
ايش
with
مشكلة؟
who I am.
Yeah.
He say he some picture and say no problem.
Yeah,
Picture,
no.
video.
Yeah, no problem. You want to get your point across. You got allergy.
Yeah, too much allergy.
Chicken, chips, what about rice?
Everything.
Everything?
Yes.
So what do you eat?
In the hospital, Queen's Elizabeth Hospital, stop me only one here. I'm eating vegetable.
Yeah.
Right.
So he went into hospital. He was living in a house.
Yeah.
They took your house
Yes.
And then they put you back in a hotel?
Yes.
Oh, so you had a house at the beginning?
Yes.
You've been there 8 years?
8 years, wow.
But now good give...
How's the benefits? How much do you get a week?
£9.
£9?
Yes.
A week?
Yes.
But you get food vouchers, you get 3 meals a day.
Yes.
What else? Healthcare, do you get dental?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do they support you better now you're in a hotel, or was the support better when you're in the house? Yeah, at the beginning.
Yes, the house good.
Was better.
The house better.
Wow. Okay.
But hotel good.
Yeah.
Eating, everything good.
Good.
Yeah.
So you're happy with the hotel?
Hey, but I'm half allergy, too much allergy.
Yeah.
Okay.
In that I'm no happy.
Okay.
You have to be careful what you have. Yeah.
The rooms here too, in the restaurant.
The people in the kitchen working.
So stay there. Okay.
Here.
Okay. So this house is the kitchen staff.
Yeah, they're supposed to be adding 20 more rooms. I don't know when.
Yeah. So I'll give you some information about this hotel.
Take care, mate.
Thank you.
And this is a 62 bedroom hotel, but they are 63 bedroom hotel. But the hotel has had the green light to convert the conference room, storage room, and the staff room into extra bedrooms. They're going to get an extra 20 bedrooms out of this hotel on the top floor. And yeah, so it's funny, we just spoke to a man from Pakistan. It's been here 8 years, and he said he was in a house and it was good, and then he got ill, went into hospital, they took his house, they put him in a hotel. And it ties in with what I've read on the article, because it says here that the council say the only way to get them out of the hotel is to find them houses. So what is going on here? This has been closed for 3 years. I can go to this window and go in the other bit. It's huge. All having food in there. Zoom in, look. All having food. And then look at this, what's on the floor, look. Just strewn on the floor.
Yeah.
What's that about? Is it?
There's one there, look. Boxing over there.
That's terrible, that is. Well, they're all nice and warm in there having lunch. And you see, I'll get treated. They've even got the Christmas tree up. But we're not welcome in there. Ooh. Oh, we've had a big meeting in here, look. It's been a big meeting in there. All the chairs around in a circle with the whiteboard. What kind of meeting were they having? Was that to talk about the expansion of the hotel? He's bolting all the doors locked. Oh, look at it in there, Mitch. Look at it in there. It's lovely, isn't it? They're all warm, they've all got the tinsel on the windows. And it's funny because they've got this here, look. Come and join us. Coffee and a cake for £5. Loads of them in here, look. Here comes security as well. There's f***ing loads of them. All men having a game of pool. But I can't come and have one. He didn't even let me finish my shot.
No,
look, she's drawing the curtains. Quick, 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 quick. Quick, she's drawing them. Here we go, guys. But here, look. We've got all the heating on, all the lights on. She's trying to shut all the curtains. Merry Christmas. They all look absolutely raging. Oh dear. Well, they're having lunch. I think lunch.
Well, yeah, I'm sure I'm sure the leftovers have got they'll put together in some boxes.
This hotel in Worcester, closed for 3 years. It's about to get a 20-bedroom extension, and they're all in there now having lunch nice and warm. If you enjoyed that video, guys, please like, subscribe and share my content on your socials. Catch you on the next one.